Welcome to Deep Look, Ultiworld's weekly radio show about the current state of Ultimate. I'm the host and the editor of Ultiworld, Charlie Eisenhood. Joining me is Ultiworld senior editor Keith Raynor, and the time is finally here. After a year-long delay and questions of whether the event was even going to take place, the 2022 World Games have gotten started, and the Ultimate competition begins tomorrow. So we are about to watch 8 of the best countries on the planet send their 14 top players to compete for gold medal at the highest level of international competition that Ultimate has, Keith. It's such an exciting event. I can't wait to watch it all unfold.
It is the highest level of Ultimate, I think, in a lot of ways. This is the best players, and in an environment that I think teams are really value being successful at. It's a big stage, and all of that comes together, I think, to make this feel like an important event that teams are focused on playing their best at, and they have their best talent there. So it's hard to over the course of the weekend, will you get some low points? Sure. But the high points here are going to be basically the best Ultimate can offer.
Yeah. And we're going to break it all down in this episode as we get you ready for the 2022 World Games. Edward Stevens, who's going to be the on-the-ground reporter in Birmingham, will join us in just a moment. And later in the show, we will talk with Matty Tsang and Kaela Helton and Claire Trop from Team USA. And we'll get you ready to roll for the World Games. Live streams begin tomorrow on the Olympic channel. You can also find them on wifdiff.sport. When we come back, Edward Stevens joins us to break down all the pools, the competitors, top team from Europe, and more on Deep Look. Don't go anywhere. Welcome back to Deep Look. Joining us now is Edward Stevens, veteran Ultiworld reporter based in Athens, Georgia, who's going to be coming down to Birmingham to cover the World Games. Edward, welcome back to the show.
Thanks. Glad to be here. And glad to be covering both the World Games, which is, a unique and thrilling and incredible event, and also to, relive some of my glory days in Birmingham, where I played many a mud bowl as a young man.
This will be my first time in Birmingham, and really my first time in Alabama. I think once I was at a tournament and I crossed the border technically into Alabama to go to dinner, but this will be my first for real time in Alabama. Any tips for those of us who are heading there?
Yeah, talk to people and get the barbecue.
Barbecue.
Yeah.
Perfect. All right. Well, this is exciting because this is the first time we're going to have a fully committed on-the-ground reporter at the World Games. And what a joy it's going to be, Edward, to watch every game at this event. That is the way this is structured. Every game happening one at a time. There's a morning session and an evening session both days, 2 games in the morning, 2 games in the afternoon, kind of dodging the heat of the day. And 8 teams, each will play 1 game per day. We have 3 days of pool play, and then we cut to semifinals. And they will play the semis on Friday and the finals on Saturday. So I think by the time this comes out, this information will be fully public. Ultiworld and WIFDIF are partnered to produce the stream from Birmingham for the first 3 days during pool play. And that will be broadcasted via the Olympic channel. It'll be embedded on the WIFDIF website as well as Olympic Channel's website. And commentary provided by a group of remote commentators in Madrid. So this is going to be an interesting technological challenge, but this is very similar to how it was done back in 2017. Starting for the semifinals, the tournament will take over and do their own broadcasts of the semis and finals, also via Madrid. We'll see how it all goes. Looking forward to a very exciting set of streams. And again, every single game in the bracket and in pool play will be live streamed. So let's dig into these pools and talk a little bit about what we can expect to see. So the 2 pools, as we actually announced these pools live on Deep Look a couple months ago. Pool A is USA, Canada, Germany, and Great Britain. Pool B is Colombia, Australia, Japan, and France. Top 2 teams from each pool will advance. There is no crossover game into the semis. So, with all this in mind, Edward, when you sat down and you looked at these pools and you started to think about, okay, like where's the action going to be? What did you notice right away?
I mean, 2 big things. Number one is I think it's going to be a real contest between the United States and Canada in Pool A. You know, the U.S. are the favorites, but Canada showed us during those Poultry Days scrimmages that they have the players with the legs and the throws to compete, you know, with their longtime North American rivals. And I think when they play their night game, I believe on Thursday night, I don't have the schedule in front of me. I think that's going to be an absolute banger. Both teams are going to want to win that pool and try to catch a slightly better matchup in potential semis matchups. And I really think that one could go either way. And
that is 6:00 Central on Thursday.
And then you look at Pool B, and the real question is, you know, you've got Japan, Australia, and Colombia, who have all had major international success in the past, and it's a question of who has spent these last 5 years since the last World Games preparing the most to be able to take that pool. It's crazy to me that one of those teams is going to be out and not even get a spot in the bracket because there's no crossover play, because I really think they're all contenders. But the 1 versus 2, 1 versus 3, and 3 versus 2 matchups, and I think it's Japan versus Colombia on day 1. Is that right? I mean, that's going to be one you want to circle in red ink.
That is correct. That game will be happening at 5:00 Eastern time on Tuesday the 12th.
It's definitely a great lineup. I mean, you have just 2 pools, so you're not going to disperse the talent very far there, and all of these teams are going to be good. I mean, we've noted before, this is probably the highest quality of Ultimate that you will find, period. You know, we talk about USA U Club Nationals being the highest level tournament that happens annually, but this is outside of that realm. I mean, we are talking basically the best of the best at this point. Now, you have maybe a little bit of the top heavy pool. I think most people would say that USA and Colombia and Canada are probably the favorites to medal. But that Pool B, as you mentioned, is pretty deep. Is there one of these pools you think is tougher than the other, particularly for those top seeds, USA and Colombia?
I think the margin of victory is the margin of error, I should say, is a little finer in Pool B. You know, I've spoken to a number of these teams with interviews leading in, and I haven't spoken to Colombia yet. They haven't done their interview yet, but almost all of them are mentioning that a single bad half can knock you to where you don't want to be at this tournament or knock you out of this tournament. And I think with 3 extremely high-level teams, not to knock on France, but they haven't played this event really before, whereas Japan and Australia and Colombia have a really solid history going back at least 2 cycles in the case of Colombia and longer in the case of Australia and Japan. And I think those teams are going to be prepared, and they're going to know the value of having to play their A game every single point of every single game. And somebody's going to get left out on a very, very, very slim kind of 2 or 3 point turn somewhere.
Well, let's talk a little bit more specifically about some of these teams. Obviously, we know the USA team well. I guess one of the questions I want to ask you right away is, you know, we saw these USA and Canada play at Poultry Days, and we have the video of that. If you're an Ultiworld Fuller Plus subscriber, you can check that out. What did you see from Canada in the final at Poultry Days that makes you feel like they have a chance to beat this USA team? Because I think that's a very interesting result, not one we typically see USA losing in prelims like this.
One of the things I saw from Canada that I liked, and granted, this was all kind of early for both squads. It's both the United States and Canada are huge, and getting everybody together on those teams can be a challenge. So both teams were definitely still working through their systems. But what you really want to see there is you want to see players who are starting at a really high floor, and you could see some of the younger Canadians like Britt DeSantos and Malik Auger-Semnar, who were really looked fast. They looked like they were playing at the same pace that we're used to seeing out of the United States. And then you saw some of the next generation older players of Canadians like Tim Tsang and Lauren Kimura really like placing themselves on the field with the kind of poise that you need to see as young players step up and get older. And I just think the talent gap is narrower this year, 1 through 14, between the United States and Canada than it has been in the past. So I'm excited to see how it plays out in actual competitive play.
Quick question, jump in over Keith. Laura Kinoshita ruled out last week, and Alyssa Mason will be taking her spot. How much do you feel like that's going to affect Canada's chances?
I think the bigger question is because it's such a small roster. I don't think the talent or role transition is going to be a very big issue for them. But with such a small roster, you have to lean on every single player right away. And when somebody has to transition from thinking, oh no, I'm not on this squad, to 6 days in advance thinking, wait, I'm competing at the World Games, it becomes an awfully quick ramp up. So you want to see that player able to jump to game speed and be able to integrate right away. So that seems like that's going to be the greater part of the challenge in my view.
Now we gotta talk Colombia. We cannot continue without talking about this Colombian team. I mean, obviously the U.S. and the Canada are two powers and two teams that have a fair shot of beating with a gold medal on the line. But what do we expect from this Colombian team? We just watched Medellin Revo Pro dominate in the Premier Ultimate League. I mean, people know what this Colombian side's capable of. What should we expect from this team, particularly now that they're playing in a mixed gender setting?
Colombia are really, really good. I know a lot of the attention gets paid to the Medellin women of Revolucion and Revo Pro because they travel so well and are sponsored and are on camera all the time, looking great. And we should pay attention to them. Valeria and Manu Cardenas are still getting better. They are. I have to check, but I think they might be 22 years old now. They have not reached their athletic primes. In particular, Valeria to me looks like she might have a case for being the best player in the world right now. That doesn't even get into Elisa Mosquera or Aleja Torres, who's been playing forever. I mean, this is probably the best 1 through 7 group on the female matching side that we have at this tournament, even above the United States. So that's a huge part of what can elevate their play. But don't sleep on the Colombian men too. Alexander Ford and Jose Jimenez and Keith. I know there's somebody who you're on the hype train for. You wanna say his name?
Felipe Ramirez. If we're going to talk about individual players, and he's definitely going to be someone I'm excited to see. Hopefully he can deliver it and back me up. At this point, it's really all about me.
I mean, here's the thing, right? So we watched this for people who are just, newer to Ultimate, checking in. We watched this Colombia team get the shock upset over the United States 5 years ago in 2017 in the first game. And then they go on to play a competitive game, but lose squarely in the final to the United States team. Now, we basically have the same female matching lineup. I mean, it's more or less the same. Just last week, though, Laura Ospina ruled out. Jimena Montaña will be in. Ospina's been one of the best players in Colombia for some time, but Montaña is no slouch. It doesn't really dent them too badly, I don't think. But, we have seen, as you say, like the improvement of many of these players since 2017. I mean, back then, half of them were teenagers. And now they're, more established. They've been playing USAU Club along with Revo. And we've seen them, basically dominate against U.S. top-level competition in the PUL. So the big question back then, it remains a question now. Can the men compete enough to hang in there against, let's say, the USA, or, pick your top team of choice? Are they good enough to hang in? I think that's the big question in my mind. What do you think, Edward?
There were a couple scrimmages filmed between Colombia's kind of larger squad tryout teams and a couple of the American clubs who traveled down for Torneo Eterna Primera, TEP, which happens every year in Cali, Colombia, I think. Earlier this year, it was back in April or maybe March. But anyway, my takeaway was that the level of the men's play is getting better. It certainly wasn't on the level of they were playing against kind of a New York Empire and an LA Aviators, AUDL squads who were kind of sort of down there at the time. And I thought they comported themselves pretty well. I mean, they definitely looked like they belonged on the field with the American stars, and they're not quite at that level yet, but I think they'll hold their own. And, they played really well in Wrocław at the last World Games. So, yeah, I think they're better than we're giving them credit for. It's just that for good reason, the Revolution players get so much shine for this team.
They can make any group, like, just the contrast. And when you're talking about a group that may have 4 or 5 of the best 25 players in the world in their cohort, like that, it's hard for anybody to stand up next to that and feel confident. But I think that's something, and we, as we kind of move towards thinking about who could actually compete here, I think that Canada and Colombia have the advantage of they are not going to be intimidated by the US. And I think that, when you talk about that male matching group for Colombia, having some of the veterans like Duque, having players who've been kind of single-mindedly focused on developing in this way, and if they can have the confidence to not be intimidated by the U.S. and by Canada, then I think Colombia really could be a team to watch. But so the question here is, we've talked about 3 different teams: the U.S., Canada, Colombia. Where is the line? Is that where the line is for where we think teams that could really win a gold medal are, or can we go beyond that?
That's tough. Where do you draw the line? I really think the U.S. can. I really think Canada can. I really think Colombia can. I think the next 2 best teams, at least on paper and based on what we know about these rosters so far, are Australia and Japan. I wonder if either of them could win gold. I can see either of them upsetting Canada or Colombia. I could see either of them, particularly Australia, giving the U.S. a game, but do I have confidence that they can put together a full tournament of doing it and win a gold? I'm not sure I would go that far. I think the line of true gold medal contenders is right behind Colombia and Canada, whichever of those teams you rank first. Although, we're looking at one of those teams in a semifinal position probably, and once you make it to the semis, anything can happen. It's a short roster, a short tournament. All you need is a couple hot games.
So, when we look at this European trio, I mean, I think it's fairly clear to say that they're the weakest group of teams at the tournament. Germany, Great Britain, and France. GB has long been the kind of premier country in European Ultimate, although we have seen things starting to shift away, particularly like among the women's side. We've seen UK teams start to not dominate Europe in the way they once did. Clapham has still been the top of the men's universe, but they've lost in recent tournaments, at EUF and such. So is GB the favorite still, or do you give it to Germany or France?
I think probably Germany has leapfrogged Great Britain a little bit, and this tournament will be kind of the proving ground to see whether that hypothesis stands up. But I look at the German side and I see a stronger roster, frankly. I don't think GB or France, or honestly many of the teams at all, have a player who can match up with the likes of Lev Kovalchuk. She's incredible. Nika Müller has been playing a really good ultimate. They have Anna Gerner, who has some serious international play under her belt. And they've also picked up Konrad Schlur, who we know here in the States is just an absolutely aces defender who could, even provide a little scouting on how to guard against Jimmy Mickle and Chris Kocher and Grant Lindsley, which is not something any of the other teams have. Not really, although I should note that Australia had Tom Tullett, who played with Jimmy for a season. But yeah, I mean, I think Germany has a lot going for it, and I'm really excited to see not only how well they fare compared to the other two European teams, but I really want to see them punch against Canada and the US. They've been out of the World Games since I think the 2005 cycle, maybe 2009. So there isn't any crossover generationally between the last players on Germany who have played. So, they'll be getting their feet wet a little bit, but that's a program with a bright future, I think.
I'm with you. I think I might pick Germany to finish fourth if I had to. I think that they maybe they're going to finish behind Japan, but I think they can outperform Australia. I like them more on paper, I think, than I like the Australian roster.
The trick is they'll have to win a game against Canada and the US to do that, though, because of the format of the tournament.
Tough sledding. This Japan roster I find interesting. I mean, we're seeing some names on it, none more prominent than Masahiro Matsuno, who have played 3 World Game cycles already. I mean, Matsuno was the guy in 2013, was still a dominant force in 2017, and now we're in 2022. Has this Japanese roster aged too much to continue to compete? Obviously in their pool, they really only need one win potentially over Colombia or Australia in order to get through the semis, but we haven't seen quite the same level of high-level play from the Japanese club teams at recent tournaments internationally. Obviously, it's been a couple of years since we've had WCC, so we're probably, unfortunately, going to learn more about them in a couple of weeks after the World Games when WUCC returns to Cincinnati. But can this Japanese roster hang in there with the young athletes that a lot of the other countries are putting on the field?
Yeah, I want to push back against one of the things you just said about the Japanese clubs not performing as well at recent international tournaments. I actually thought that both Buzz Bullets and Nomadic Tribe in the men's division had really nice outings at their last U.S. Open, which was 2019. You have to go back before the pandemic, and a lot can change. They didn't do as well on the women's and mixed sides at that same tournament, but you have to remember that they're probably their best female matching player, Kaede Yoshida, who is one of the most fun players to watch in the sport, was playing with Seattle Riot at the time. So those clubs were down potentially their best player. That being said, I'm too wise. I'm too wise to put any nails in Masahiro Matsuno's coffin. I won't do it. I think he's still got it. Somebody posted a highlight recently of him doing another one of those kind of spectacular, explosive rubber band skies that he's become known for. And I think he'll probably be extremely motivated. I mean, he always has been, of course, but the Buzz Bullets entire team were banned from competition both in Japan and any international participation back in 2017, which knocked him off of that World Games roster, which is probably one of the reasons why they didn't have as good of a World Games in 2017 in the last cycle as they would have. So yeah, I think Japan does have some older players who, even though they're getting long in the tooth, are probably still some of the best players in the world. And even though Matsuno has shown his athleticism, a lot more of what made Japan a great team in recent international tournaments has been the difference in their play style from the more dominant, North American strategies and styles of play. They're taking different angles with their away shots. They're running the kinds of zones that we just don't see in this country and that they don't see in Europe. And I think those kinds of things, that awesome Japanese coordinated defense where you'll see video breakdowns of them chattering with each other throughout the entire point, are going to play into their hands in this tournament yet again.
And I should quickly correct myself because you're totally right. He didn't play for the World Games team. It was 2016 when he was playing for the Japanese men's national team, where he still looked fantastic. So this is a very interesting tournament, of course, but one of the reasons that it's so fun is that we get to see the stars from the international ultimate world. We've already talked about some of them. Who are some other players that you want to point out as players to watch this week?
Well, one of the teams we haven't talked about much is Team France, and I'd be lying if I expected them to make it out of pool play. I think they have too big of a hill to climb in Pool B against Colombia, Japan, and Australia. But they do have some really interesting players. They've got a couple of older handlers in Mathieu Bosset and Aline Mondiaux, who have proven to be really effective distributors. And in Bosset's case, kind of like eye-poppingly creative. So I'm looking to see how they work with a couple of their younger players. There are a pair of sisters, the Borno sisters, Lisson and Eva, who are another couple of the youngest players at the tournament who've just moved up from the kind of U20 and U24 cycles and are joining the adult, the highest level world roster for a French team, really for the first time. And I'm really excited to see how those older throwers match with those younger cutters and what kinds of chemistries they can develop. One of the other players I'm excited to watch is Cat Phillips in Australia. I have been an unabashed Cat Phillips stan for years now. I thought she was the single best player at the last World Games tournament, with apologies to, Georgia Boscher and Leanne Hoffman and Dylan Freechild, who are all also excellent for the winning United States side. But Cat Phillips, as some of you probably know, is a professional Aussie Rules football player and also an extremely serious ultimate player. She has played a couple of seasons with Toronto Sixers here in the States and has been a fixture on Ellipsis and Team Australia teams for a long time. She's a real do-it-all player, and she's probably the best player outside the U.S. at those kind of quick give-and-go moves where she's every other pass all the way down the field, and I love to see that style of play. So I'm super thrilled to watch her. What about you, Keith?
Well, I'll quickly just give my Felipe Ramirez just a really exciting player, explosive, able to play in the backfield, but also attack downfield. I think he's going to show off his versatility and his flash for that Colombian side. You mentioned Lev Kowalczak. Along with Yoshida, there's a chance that she is the most exciting woman in the world to watch play Ultimate. Just an absolute monster in the air, just balletic agility, just such a fun player to watch. Really excited to see how she competes against the best players in the world. Who else would I feel like is really Molly Wedge for GB? I think when you talk about Elaine Mondio and like her experience and her ability to generate offense, I think you're going to see a lot of that same kind of unflappability from Wedge. I know are we eschewing the US here? Or
No, we're going to talk about them in 1 second.
Okay.
But I want to shout out one thing that we haven't talked about yet. One thing that's particularly interesting about the World Games, they're going to have a prescribed gender ratio rule in place, which means that teams aren't choosing. There's 2 points 4-3. There's 2 points 4-3 the other way. So that's one note. The second note is that when the gender with 4 players on the field, a member of that gender must pull. Now, this is particularly interesting in the case of Colombia, because I think that they have one of the best pullers on the planet, regardless of division, in Elisa Mosquera, who, for my money, was the best player in like women's division play in 2019 before she tore her ACL. Now, she's back from the ACL. She's already been playing, and she can launch pulls, okay? That is going to be a difference maker. How much have teams thought about this? I do not know, but I know for a fact that she is going to be able to pin teams in the back of the end zone, perhaps at a better clip than we're going to see from other teams. That could come into play down the stretch of games when Colombia wants to ratchet up the pressure. So she's one to watch for sure, and I think that that's a big reason why. All right, let's talk about USA. I'm really curious to get your take, Edward, on who is going to step up as kind of the leader or leaders of this team. There's plenty of veterans back from 2017, but we don't have a Bo Kittredge out there who's done it for many, 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 many years. Is there somebody that you think from the tape or from talking to the team or just from your sense of things that's going to step up and be the kind of the couple of go-to people for this USA roster?
Yeah, I wonder. This is always the question for the U.S. Bringing a huge number of enormously talented players who, by and large, outside of the Fury group and the Pony group, play for different clubs. You bring them together, and who gets the rock? Who speaks in the huddle? All of these players are used to doing that. This is a team of 14 leaders. Even Claire Trop, who's the youngest player on the team, has experience leading a college team and being the A1 or A2 option on a top level club team and a semi-pro team. So I don't know who it's going to be. You look at players like Grant Lindsley and Opie Payne, who are some of the older players on the team and the teams with the most international experience, and you figure that the U.S. will be leaning on them in huddles, especially, or during those long stretches each day when they're not playing. Like I would guess those would be the players that you'll see like set the mindset for the team. But as far as who is going to get the rock, I'll tell you that the 2 players who I thought popped most on the tape in the limited film we have of the team were Dylan Freechild and Claire Trop. It seemed like they were playing on wings when everybody else was playing on cleats, and that really matters. When there are going to be times when the U.S. system just works and they get it to the 4 passes that they've drawn up from the pull play and it looks great and there's an easy score. And there are going to be other points where something goes wrong early on and they get themselves in a jam and somebody is just going to have to get open or somebody is going to have to make the throw. And I think those 2 are maybe going to make it outside of, if it's a mark breaking situation, you trust Jimmy Mickle in that situation more than anybody else. But yeah, I think I'm looking to them. I don't know how you feel about that.
I'm all aboard for Claire Trop. I'm very impressed with the limited tape that we have. For such a young player to already be performing at this level is remarkable. And it would not shock me if we walk away from this saying that Claire Trop is the best woman playing in U.S. competition. And if they win the gold medal, like that could mean that we're talking about someone who's just really on the precipice of their stay as a star, as the best woman in the world. I mean, I think that there's a non-zero chance that we're going to be having that conversation a couple weeks from now. I do think, however, like if I were forced to be like, okay, who's going to walk into the huddle and take control when the one or two times that the U.S. might be in a situation where they're feeling challenged, and to me that person's Carolyn Finney. I think that she's going to be given the reins for this team as a vocal and physical leader. I think that she is just assertive and experienced in that fashion. So she's someone I was looking at, and one of the other players who I find that in my experience, it feels like a lot of other players look to as a leader. Maybe not someone who's the biggest name, who's someone who'd say is the most accomplished, but I feel like Caroline Normile is a player that a lot of other players respect and look to. And I've always found that I'm like, wow, I am impressed with how much it seems like she has the attention of her teammates, regardless of who she's playing with. So that's someone to keep an eye on, although she's obviously a little bit younger and a little less experienced than Finney.
Let me put this out there. U24 men's team in a tight game against Italy, looking a little scary. Who stepped up? Jack Williams. New York Empire needs somebody to step up, get the job done late in key games last season. Jack Williams. Raleigh Ring of Fire, who's been the best player on that team for like 4 years. Jack Williams. Best male player on earth right now. Maybe Dylan Freechild's coming back for that crown, because I mean, I think you could say it was Dylan in 2019. But I think that Jack Williams, maybe not the guy in the huddle that's going to be the hype him up, leader type, but when it comes down to clutch situations, I think we're going to see him on the field every time. And I think he could be the reason that the U.S. wins. I don't think that's an exaggeration. We have seen him time and time again when it's big spot, need a break, need a clutch hold, he takes over. And he's done it all the way back, dating into his college days at UNC Wilmington.
Hard to disagree with Jack Williams coming in as the front runner to be the best male matching player in the world right now.
All right, well, we get to watch it all unfold. Key games in your mind, Edward, in the first couple days of competition.
You want to see Germany versus Canada, just to get a measure of where this German squad is on their timeline to being competitive. As mentioned before, Japan versus Colombia, I think, is a day one matchup that you want to watch. And frankly, even though it's a bit of I don't want to say a warm-up game for the U.S., but it's a disparity between the U.S. and Great Britain. But you really want to see that first U.S. game, and if you're a fan of the U.S. or if you have money on them to win gold, you want to come out and see them put their best foot forward and look much, much, much sharper than they did in those Poultry Days scrimmages right out of the gate. I expect they will, but put it in ink, watch it, Let's see where we are.
Well, it's going to be a lot of fun to watch it all unfold. Action begins Tuesday morning at what time is the first game? 9:30 a.m. Central, so 10:30 Eastern, Tuesday the 12th. So that will be Canada versus Germany.
Are any of us willing to pick against the U.S. to win gold? I can't do it. So
I think we should all put our picks in ink right now.
We can, but that's kind of the question: is are you picking against the U.S. or not?
Well, semi. I'll go ahead and go first. Semis, I'm going USA, Canada, Colombia, Australia. Anybody got anything different? Anybody taking Japan?
I'll do it just because I think there needs to be a little dissent on the podcast. I think it's a coin toss between Australia and Japan. But I'm in kind
of the same boat, and it's does the experience that Japan has or the age to help or hurt them? I think that Australia's defense is probably going to be pretty fierce. But Japan always feels like they outperform. Last World Game cycle was standing, and with good reason, given the talent disparity they had due to the buzz bullet suspension. So I guess I'll go chalk with Australia, but I do think it's very, very close.
Here's why I give Japan the edge on the coin flip. Northern Hemisphere team, they've been playing in the summertime, training in the summertime. They're coming to the summertime in Alabama. Australia's been working through a dark winter. It's been a little chilly down there. Give me the team that doesn't have to adapt to such a big change in conditions in a coin toss situation.
I just imagine Australia as summer at all times. So whether that's right or wrong, I don't know. Okay, well, I'm taking USA and Colombia in the final.
Same boat. Canada's good. Colombia's great.
I'll take US Canada in the final.
Okay.
All North America here. North America homer. It's my continent.
I'm going to do it. I'm going to take Colombia.
Wow.
Let me tell you why. In the U.S., World Games comes around and everybody's motivated. You have these top players and they're very motivated to make the team. They want to make the team. It's this great honor to even try out, and you have to go against this incredibly tough group of competition. There's no harder team to make on the planet than the USA World Games team. And they make the team, and obviously they're incredibly talented and they're the favorite every time. Here's the difference though. Colombia's had a plan for 10 years to win this tournament. They have been working since they lost in 2017 in the final to get back to this day. The quality of the players has gone up. The quality of the coaching has gone up. And I just think there's enough there where the continuity of the players and the chemistry that they have playing together that's going to overcome what is probably a talent disparity on the men's side. On the women's side, I think they have the better group, to be perfectly honest. And so it's going to be if we get that game, I think it's going to be an incredible game. And I think it's going to be very close. I don't expect it to be a 4 or 5 point win again. I think Colombia can do it this year. And I think, it would obviously be a seismic shift in what, we think about international ultimate. It's been a very long time since the USA has lost a meaningful game at one of these big international tournaments. And I think this could be the time it happens.
Bold take. Love to see it. I love to see it. I can't get with it. I think that the U.S. is just going to be able to overpower them. Obviously, particularly in the male matching player department, it's just. I think that historically, the Colombian men's teams have been athletic, strong defensive teams, very physical, and that's going to be able to get them past some teams. But they're not going to be able to out athlete and out physical this big, strong group that the U.S. has. And you know what? We have not seen a Colombian men's team really break through in international play either. And so I don't think that they're quite there with that group yet. So I'm still sticking with U.S. take gold.
Me too. I got U.S. winning gold here.
The last thing I'll say about Colombia. The first game they played against the U.S. in 2017 was a W. I think it was very fortunate for the U.S. to lose that game and have another chance to play Colombia again a second time. They do not get that opportunity this time. It is not round robin play. The first time that they could see each other is semis. And I think that plays to Colombia's hands. Because I guarantee you, Colombia is going to hold stuff back specifically against the U.S. They will have specific plays, sets, plans to beat the U.S. They've been thinking about it for 5 years.
If the U.S. plays Colombia in semis, that means most likely to me that the U.S. lost to Canada. I think that's more likely than Colombia losing to Japan or Australia. In that situation, I think the U.S. is in better shape than playing Colombia having not had a loss. You know me. If you listen to our podcast regularly, I'm a big proponent. You got to get hit in the mouth before everything's on the line. So the U.S. has that chance with Canada. If they go out there and they wash Canada and they, cruise into the final unchallenged and then play Colombia, that's what I'm nervous about the U.S. But if they go in and they've had their chance to recover, then I think they're going to be able to take care of business against Colombia in the semis.
All right. Well, this is why we play the games, folks. It's all going down this week. Tune in, Olympic Channel, wifdiff.sport. And, of course, we'll have preview coverage and links to all of the streams up on ultiworld.com/live. So you can tune in there. And, Edward, thank you so much for being here, and can't wait to see you down in Birmingham.
Yeah, I'll see you next week. Thanks, guys. I appreciate it.
Edward Stevens will be reporting on the World Games from Alabama, and we will be right back here on Deep Look. Joining us now on Deep Look from left, Kaela Helton, Claire Trop, and Matty Tsang. Matty, of course, the coach for the World Games team, and Claire and Kaela, both competitors for Team USA. I want to say thank you to all of you for taking some time out to talk with us right before the event.
Sure.
So we're recording this Friday, the 8th. Last night was the World Games overall opening ceremonies. How was it?
It was one of the most cool experiences I've ever had in my life. It was the first time that I really realized that because the World Games are in the U.S., we are the host country, and so everyone was cheering for us super, super extra loud when we walked out of the tunnel. It's really cool.
Yeah, it was crazy. They said, Team USA, we're last, even though alphabetically we're not last because we're the host country. And the entire stadium got on their feet and was, screaming. It was wild. And it wasn't, a 20,000. It was, 50,000 people. Yeah. It was crazy.
It hasn't even really set in for me that you were hosting.
I made sure I stood next to folks who were, first-timers. So I got close, Carolyn Normile and Jack Williams, because I think unless you've experienced that, it's such a unique experience, especially for us as Ultimate players, and that's one of the things that I enjoy the most of it. So it was really cool standing next to them and seeing their kind of eyes light up as we walked out of the tunnel into the stadium.
And I saw that Nelly performed. I have to know how that was.
Well, apparently, I think Nelly was late, so he obviously was going to close, but that's the opening ceremony when it was 3 hours? I mean, we were out for 8 hours with all the waiting.
Wow.
And he performed one song. You were hot in here, and we were trying to surmise how much he got paid to perform one song.
That's amazing. Show up late to do one song. That's incredible.
Yeah.
Claire, are you familiar with Nelly's work? I mean, I feel like you're by far the baby of the team.
Familiar with Nelly?
Yeah.
Yes. Yes, I was singing along. I know the words.
Matty, you mentioned, trying to be near new players, and Kaela and Claire, I know this is your first time. How much are you, Kaela and Claire, kind of looking to folks who've been there before to get a sense of what to expect or how to prepare? How much are you looking to the veterans? And we can start with you, Kaela.
I've definitely asked them questions just to see if the experience has been similar, the opening ceremonies, was it similar in Poland, that type of thing. I do think once we get to the games, you kind of just need to shut out all the noise and play Frisbee. So as far as that part, I haven't been, but all of the big event and World Games specific stuff I have been.
Yeah, I think similar for me. Ask them questions. It's kind of fun to do a compare and contrast a little bit. I think we do a pretty good job of separating them, of this being its own unique experience and its own unique team with its own challenges and also its own really awesome components. So I think we touch on it a little bit, but it's not a focus.
Matty, again, we're recording this Friday, so you've got a few days until the actual games get started on Tuesday. How are you going to use these next few days for preparation? Are you practicing every day? Are you just trying to hang out and rest up? What's the focus from the coaching staff side of things?
Just a lot of Spot It and Hanabi being played every day, just hours. No, we're actually really lucky that we have this time together. We have the next 3 days we'll have practice all in the evening, so we're trying to mimic our game time. So and I'm super thankful that we have this time. This cycle, especially because of COVID, we haven't had all our players like at Poultry Days. Saturday evening was the first time that we had our whole team. So yeah, these couple days are going to be really key for us to get acclimated to each other and kind of build that chemistry.
I actually wanted to ask about COVID specifically because we unfortunately are like, it seems, right back in the middle of like a Omicron surge, BA5. I just had a camera operator get COVID, so we're scrambling to find a replacement for streaming next week. How are you managing the challenges of all being in a dorm together? Is there like daily testing happening? Did you test in advance? Like, how are you managing that, given that there's definitely some risk that you could lose people during competition?
Yeah, I mean, through this whole cycle, with the guidance from, our medical doctor, we've been testing. So everyone tests before they got here, test when they got here. So we have a series of just internal testing that we do. And yeah, it's definitely affected our team. And I think, it will continue to be a thing that we need to be really cognizant of and wary of.
Is everybody COVID free right now?
Don't jinx us. Oh my goodness.
I just want to ask as we get ready to start here. I'll knock on the wood too.
We're all testing negative. We have a couple close contacts, so we have an alternate flying in just in case.
Got it.
Does this change the strategy that you have to prepare with at all? Like knowing that your lineups could be changing in a way that you otherwise might not anticipate?
Yeah. I walked through subbing 13 yesterday.
Yeah.
So, but it is what it is. And, I think even with this tournament, like COVID is definitely a huge thing, but, we've had a cycle where we've lost 2 and gone down to 11. So it's part of it's a unique challenge of COVID. It's part of a challenge of a tournament like this. So,
for Claire, how are you preparing for opponents? And maybe that's something that you just leave to the coaches, but are you spending time thinking about matchups or thinking about looking at any tape of any teams from past cycles or even recently? How are you getting ready for the teams you're going to face in pool play?
We have, as a team, have done some film both for ourselves and then like in discussion of opponents. I think for me primarily, and I can't speak to what other people are doing necessarily. I have had conversations with Matty about potential matchups, watched film of those individuals, considered different strategies I might employ. But I think we're a pretty like team defense style team, and so you think a lot of it is going to be through like building chemistry throughout these practices and tournament with like fellow defenders or on offense with our own teammates and focusing like pretty internally.
I want to ask about playing in a mixed gender setting like this one. Kaela, this is something that I feel like you're among the players on the team, someone who has probably some of the most experience with this. And Claire, perhaps you have less than some of your teammates. Kaela, we can start with you. Is this something that has been a big focus for adjustments or changes in how players are playing? And I know that probably traces all the way back to the tryout process. Is it something that you feel like you're able to help your teammates make adjustments to? And what has that process been like?
Yeah, I think starting at tryouts, there was some dialogue happening on the sidelines about how to adjust to playing mixed. And we do have a good number of single gender players on the team. So just looking at spaces differently or how you read a cut can be different if you're used to playing women's than men's and vice versa. So again, it's kind of like a slowly build chemistry, watch film, and then lots of side conversations. But think we're pulling it together pretty well. It's like a lot of experience on this team, so making adjustments is something we're all used to, even if we're not used to the mixed gender setting.
Was it all a concern to lose the shortened Poultry Days final to Team Canada?
I wouldn't say a concern, no. It was a very frustrating way to end that last practice weekend, especially with that being the last thing the alternates were going to be at. And then just the way it ended with thunderstorm rolling in and not able to finish. But, I think it's actually really good for a team like this to lose. Kind of gives you perspective and makes you hungry and humble, keeps you humble. So I think that was actually in the long run really good for us.
I think Chris said it really well, that there's, at this level, there's not much difference between winning by 5 and losing by 2. And I think it's good to have that reminder and be like, yeah, you can get kicked in the face, and we're going to have to be able to fight through that and hit right back.
There's obviously a lot of expectations for the team to perform well. I don't think it's a bold statement to say that the U.S. is going to be favored by many to win the gold medal, and that's going to be the expectation given the history of the team and the players on it. How do you manage that pressure to have to be the best for that to feel like the baseline for success?
Kind of what I said earlier, I just kind of shut out that noise. As long as you're investing in your teammates and keeping it in the group, that's a good way to stay focused. And we've all been in this situation before where we're playing on Team USA, the pressure is high and no one really wants us to succeed. So yeah, I think we're all used to that.
I don't think anyone is setting higher expectations than ourselves, and I think that's part of why this team is here and these individuals. And so I don't think it's anything new, and I think it's other people's expectations that kind of drop in the bucket.
I have kind of a specific question, and maybe this is best for Matty. Who's pulling? Because I think that this is an interesting year where we have designated pulling split gender. Have you decided who's going to be the primary pullers for defensive points in, let's say, in tight games where you're maybe subbing a little bit more O&D than you otherwise might?
We haven't decided specifically, but through practice and then the tournaments, people have been doing it and been doing well. So, it was a consideration in terms of the tryout, making sure that from both genders that we had good options to pull. And it's funny, I was watching the 2017 footage last couple days, and it would have been different, right? We had some constructions that we didn't have all those options, but yeah, I have a lot of confidence in the group that we have. Both of these two folks pull. These are the ones now. We've now decided. If you have an Ultiworld interview,
pullers.
you also get to pull.
Hot takes.
Yeah. Also, Claire Trop was our flag bearer yesterday. So
Oh, nice.
And a 6'7" fistball player named Matt.
Yeah, Matt. He was really nice.
So taking a lot of responsibility for the USA.
That was for the entire USA delegation.
Yeah.
Wow. What an opportunity.
How does that come about? Is that
Well, she didn't know Nelly, so they had to give her something to do.
Just slander.
Wait, no, I actually want to know how it happened. I want to know how that comes together.
Did they just say ultimate you get to pick one, or did you nominate? How did it happen?
They were asking, everyone was in this big room and they were asking, anyone want to be the flag bearer? And fistball guys were like, oh, we have a 6'7" person. Is anyone taller than him? And so he immediately got bumped in and then was like, oh, do we want a balloon matching individual to also carry the flag? And nobody's volunteering. And then I was volunteered.
It's my favorite thing, volunteering people for
I think
things.
someone was like, she's 13. I was but it was enough to get the crowd on my side.
Get the children involved in this whole process.
That kind of makes me curious about how much you're getting to interact with and getting to know the other athletes, particularly in the U.S. delegation from other sports. Obviously, you get to interact probably some amount of the 8 hours or so that you were involved with opening ceremonies yesterday. But is it something where you're getting to know or meet people repeatedly, or is everybody pretty focused on what you're trying to accomplish?
No, I think we've all been trying to get to know, meet, follow on Instagram, athletes from all these different sports, and just like realizing that you may be in a ballroom in a convention center for 3 hours because you're waiting to go somewhere else, but like that time is actually super valuable, and being present, and hearing about how, you know, the U.S. national karate team does things. It's been really cool.
We brought games. We were having a really rowdy time, and then other athletes joined. It was fun.
A very heated spotted game with U.S. karate and U.S. fistball and flying disc. So I don't know who came out on top. Dylan Freechild representing flying disc very well.
Good to know. Good to know. Do you know what fistball is? Because we were just talking about this earlier. I don't know what it is.
It's wild. It's like kind of like volleyball, but it has like there's just a little tiny band that's the net really high up, and you can't touch it, and it can bounce. So they're like on a big grass field, and there's 5 of them, and they're whacking this heavy ball at each other. And every time a person hits it, it can hit the ground, and then they're going back and forth. It's crazy. Chris and I watched them at the New York weekend. We're gonna try to go this weekend because it's pretty exciting stuff.
Yeah, I was gonna ask you. You're gonna get out and watch some of the other sports before you have to play.
Yeah, definitely, for sure.
Awesome. Okay, so who's the biggest threat to Team USA? Which team?
I mean, Colombia's always up there.
How do you prepare for that team specifically?
Well, I think first is like, you know, given our format and, you know, the short games are 13, you play 1 game a day, like pretty much everyone's a threat. Because like, you know, you're not focused for, you know, in the first half for a couple points, like it can really hurt you. So I think that's the first thing. In terms of, you know, preparing for Colombia, they're on the other side of the pool right now. So obviously we'll do some work, but our focus is really, you know, we have GB on our first day, and then Germany, right, and then Canada. So I think in terms of my goal for the team is just focus on that, and then coaches will focus on the other side of the pool, right? We don't know what's going to happen. So there's games in front of us that we need to take care of and do really well and continue to build. And, you know, if we do our job, then we get a chance to kind of think about those other teams.
I'm curious, Matty, what you think about the fact that they're games to 13 with fairly short cap times. It does increase more variance into the game to have shorter games. Does that change anything about how you approach each matchup?
It doesn't change. I think it does just, it heightens that need for immediate focus, right? Like I think in a game to 15, there is a chance to kind of like sometimes for some teams, like pretty much I not want no teams that I coach to ramp up during a game. But, you know, the fact remains that there are times that like there are some points that you can kind of coast a little bit, even though that's not what I want from, you know, our team. But I think this just heightens that. And I think everyone realizes that. And so, you know, for that hour and 40 minutes or whatever that we have, we want to be like, from that first pool, be ready for whatever is happening and be able to flexibly adjust quickly.
Kaela, you've mentioned a couple times that, you know, you're kind of focused that the team has a lot of experience. You know, that there are a number of players who've played with Team USA. Obviously, have had a lot of success in their careers, but now you're all together on a team together, and you have a very short lead up time. How do you find your roles within that team, not just on the field so much as you know, in the huddles, on the sidelines with so little time? How do you build up to discover, you know, what your part to play is going to be?
Yeah, it's definitely felt like you just have to go for it. Like there's no time to question yourself. Like in the huddles, if no one's leading the cheer, you just got to jump in and lead the cheer. And there are only 14 of us here and 20 of us at the practice weekends. So yeah, just got to jump in, and it's felt like the team has been very accepting and responsive to everyone who's done that. So yeah, it's great.
So I guess I think my last question here is, how do you balance wanting to like savor this opportunity to go to this international tournament and have the pomp and circumstance of 50,000 people in the stadium and this time with teammates, with needing to be really, really focused in order to try to win a gold medal? Maybe those things aren't in conflict, but I could see that, you want to be able to enjoy it, but also, there's a lot of focus required to succeed. So how do you balance that? And maybe I'll ask that to Claire.
Yeah, to me, they're not super in conflict. I think the excitement just for me like kind of feeds into the like desire to play well and to get out on the field and to represent. I think like logistically it's nice we have like some pretty consistent structure in that we're gonna be like practicing at the same time we're gonna be playing, and so I think we'll get into sort of a rhythm in which like there are times where we're really buying into the experience and watching other sports and playing games, and then there'll be times where it's like, all right, this is when we need to focus, and we're starting that before the tournament, so it won't be like day one, oh, we've just been having fun and now we have to play a game and it's chaotic. I think it'll be a bit more of like, this is what we've been doing, we're used to it, and we'll kind of just ramp from here.
Yeah, I've been very grateful that we got here early and that we play later in the week. Kind of gives you a chance to get over the newness and jitters and see some other things and experience opening ceremonies and all the other activities, and then still have time to kind of focus in.
Awesome. Well, we wish you all the best of luck, and can't wait to see the action unfold next week in Birmingham. I should say this week, because this show is coming out Monday.
You'll get to play with the crowd behind you, which I feel like never happens for U.S. teams, but B, probably hasn't happened for most of y'all in your careers, as often playing on teams that are favored to win and the crowd loves an underdog. So it'll be interesting to see how that plays out.
People are like seeing us at Target and getting excited because we're Team USA athletes, and that is such a unique and experience. It's been amazing.
Do we have any sense of what the crowds are going to be like for the Ultimate Games?
I have no idea. I don't even know how big. Have you all seen the stadium at all? I don't even know.
I haven't physically been there yet, but it's a
know the layout.
Average sized high school stadium in the South. So that means it's like got fairly large stands.
Which is bigger.
That's right. That's right.
Like Frisco stadiums.
I don't think it's quite that nice, unfortunately. That was incredible.
Those are amazing facilities.
Yes. That had like elevator to the press box, 10 rooms up in the press box, like soundproofed. It was crazy. This is a more standard high school stadium.
You really peaked for that tournament, like the facilities for you all to film there.
Yes. Oh gosh, that was amazing. Yeah, we're going to be outside under a tent. So, that's our roots.
Awesome.
That's what we know. So, looking forward to it. Thank you so much for giving us a few minutes, and good luck this week.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Kaela, Helton, Claire, Trop, Matty Tsang with us here on Deep Look. We'll be right back. Welcome back to Deep Look. Well, thank you so much to Edward and all of the Team USA crew for joining us on this episode. Keith, I feel more informed. I feel ready to go, and it's so cool to see that the athletes are already there and able to practice. I mean, I think that's going to raise the level of the tournament a little bit too, to have people already in attendance, getting used to the climate, getting used to the time zone, and I feel like that's going to make for great games right out of the gate on Tuesday.
A lot of people don't realize, as someone who played in Birmingham and then when I lived in the South, a lot of people don't realize that it is in the central time zone. I forgot myself, in fact. So be aware of that fact. They're not in the Eastern time zone which I think a lot of people probably think about. But yeah, I think it'll be an interesting experience. Usually the U.S. is the bad guy, the villain, and I think a lot of people are going to want to see a different team win than the favorite. But they'll be playing in front of, I imagine, a primarily U.S. based crowd who's going to want to see the American team play their best. And so it'll be an interesting environment to see how that plays out. And I'm very curious about what kind of numbers we're going to see at stadiums. When we hear about Columbia, it's thousands and thousands of people. Like that's more than watch any other Ultimate event. So will we see that same sort of turnout here in Birmingham?
I hope so. Man, that'd be sweet. Like, what's the over-under on pool play attendance? Pool play, not finals, right? Finals is its own thing.
Oh my gosh, I have no clue. I mean, what was it? It was in Bogota last time.
Yeah. Well, it might have been in Medellin. I don't quote me. I don't remember. Or maybe it was in Cali. It was in Colombia. That's all I got for you.
Maybe it wasn't Cali. It might have been Cali. Birmingham is a population of 800,000 and Cali, Colombia is 2.2 million. So that's going to make me automatically think we're going to be looking at a bit of a smaller number here, even if it's an event that brings people traveling. That would make me think we're going to be looking at smaller numbers. So I don't know.
Birmingham is bigger than Wrocław, Poland. And it's also driving distance from Atlanta,
yes.
New Orleans. Like
there are people that live
Houston.
in Birmingham and work in Atlanta. Like people commute from one to the other.
Right.
So, yeah, I don't know. 2,500, 2,000, 2,500 for a pool play game? Is that crazy?
I don't know. I have no idea. I really don't know. I don't get the sense that Birmingham is like a super crazy Ultimate hub. I mean, they have, UAB is there, and I'm sure there's plenty of local Ultimate players, and I hope that they're all going to come out and watch. But like, what is the general population appetite for going and going to these games? I genuinely just don't know the answer to that. So I'd take the under on 2,500. I think for pool play games, but I hope you're right. I mean, it's going to be a lot of fun if there's big crowds for every game.
Now, if you are one of those local area schools, I hope you have someone out there passing out flyers or recruiting. You never know what high school kid you might attract. Who's like, oh, I've never seen this before. You could end up with some good recruits. Or if you're a semi-pro team,
hearing about the fact that they're in Target and people are like getting jazzed because they see a Team USA athlete there. I mean, like, this is probably a pretty big deal. I mean, that's not that big of a city. Like, this is a massive international event taking place in a relatively small U.S. city.
I hope that at least the local disc org has like some methodology for signing people up or presenting some opportunity to them, and certainly a USA Ultimate probably could benefit from the same thing. So we'll see what the overall effects is. I'm not sure what to expect, to be honest. It's such an unusual event. It happens so infrequently, and the context in which it operates in are so different from year to year and environment to environment that I think it's pretty tough to project what we're going to see. Now, I have a question for you.
Okay.
Because we talked about the strength of the U.S. delegation, but you only get 14 players here. I mean, we talked about USA Team 2 when we went back during tryout season. How well do you think a second or even a third U.S. team would do in the field? Like if you just took the next 14 and the 14 after that and you just shoved them into this field, would they be the second and third favorite teams to win this thing? Would they be the third or fourth? Like, what do you think?
Well, keep in mind, I picked Colombia to win the gold medal.
I do remember that. Even picking Colombia to win the gold medal, I still think you'd make U.S. the favorite.
Yes, the U.S. is the favorite. Couple points, 1.5, maybe 2.5 points. Game 13, like the potential for things to get weird is high in a game to 13. It doesn't take very many mistakes. Like, yes, these players are all elite, but no one is immune from turfing a backhand on accident. Like, And that can be the difference in a game, particularly one that's just a 13. I can't wait. I mean, I like the high variance nature of this tournament. Smaller rosters benefits the world. Shorter games benefits the world. Now, to answer your question, I think that U.S. teams would be favorites to make semis, but I do think that after at least the second team, you're going to have Colombia and Canada be favored ahead of like team 3.
I think so too. I mean, I think a second U.S. team would still be the favorite. Like if you took away this team and just subbed in the next 14 right now, I think that team would still be the favorite.
Probably.
But if you subbed in the third group, I think you're starting to maybe favor Colombia and Canada.
You start to lose so many really important players, even in just going to team 2. Like the lineup for team 2. I mean, we did this exercise. And we came up with a team that I thought was like pretty stout defensively, that like maybe outclassed team 1 with its defense. But I don't think there's any way to replace the offensive power that is on the existing U.S. team. And that matters. That matters.
Yeah, but there were some really good players who aren't on this team. That
Can we go back? What was our team 2? We did this.
Let's see. I'm gonna dig it up for us.
Love it. I mean, we made a good team. We definitely made a good team.
Okay, so here's our team 2.
Okay.
Cammie Groom, Anna Thompson, Jessie Schaffner, Leanne Hoffman, Lindsay Sue, Kelly Johnson, Claire Desmond, Ben Yacht, Saul Yannick, Eric Taylor, Trent Dillon, Jack Hatchett, Paul Arders, Johnny Mansfield. That was our team 2.
I stand by what I said. I think that's I mean, on the women's side, I feel like there's honestly a couple spots where I'm like, wow, it feels like they should have made the team. But on the men's side, I don't know. Like, I just feel like there's going to be some challenging spots offensively for that team.
Maybe I make that team even with Colombia.
Yeah, I think that's right. Like they lose a couple of points to both Colombia and Canada. And if you made a third team after this, they would be underdogs to those teams.
I agree. I agree with that. I don't think you and we'd have to go to Ravi and Liam to ask about how like a hypothetical Russian or Italian team might fare. But I think that those countries were teams people were potentially excited about from a talent standpoint to be involved in the mix. I don't know if I'd say they look like gold medal teams, but probably teams that could have made it out of pool play.
Maybe. Yeah. Italy. Yeah. I mean, Russia won gold against the beach U.S. women's team. For whatever that's worth. It's worth something.
We've seen Russian women's teams do well in international competition. I mean, the team's
very true.
Huge. They're so tall. So I think that they would be like a worse version of Colombia, I guess, in that sense. Like I think that their women's side would be quite strong, but their men's side might be a bit thin.
Well, what else is on your mind as we get ready to go for the World Games, Keith?
I feel like we've covered a lot, getting a sense of what to expect from the event. Are you going to be watching? Are you going to watch any World Games from other events? Are you going to look at anything else?
I don't know, Keith. I hope to be able to, but I mean, realistically, it won't happen until Friday at the earliest. So if I can find some stuff to go watch and it won't interrupt the Ultimate schedule, then yeah, totally. And then, on Saturday, there's just the final. So watch the final and then, catch something else. I don't fly out till Sunday morning. So I
find myself wondering right now, like, what's the korfball media scene look like?
Dude, I'm trying to like go write a dispatch about some other sport.
I mean, if korfball world exists, like we should be signing up to be like, hey, we'll write about our impressions of korfball if you write about your impressions of Ultimate.
Yeah,
we can post on each other's
sites. Great
sites.
idea. Maybe I'll run into some other media people and I can set that up. The other thing is like, how about like flag football? Like, who are the world's best flag football players? How did they get to that point? What are these like NFL caliber athletes out there? Like, I there's so much I do not know, and I look forward to checking it all out. I mean,
I've seen some pretty sweet sports, flag football clips on social media.
Karate, for example, Kaela mentioned karate in the interview.
Mhm.
Like, world champion level karate is like, I mean, it's a much more serious thing than Ultimate. I mean, like,
Yes.
I just, like, so many people do karate. So you're getting to the top level. It's sort of surprising that karate's not in the Olympics, but that's how these things go, I guess. And so I don't know. I just feel like, you know, this is a big deal for Ultimate, but it feels like there's some other sports where, like, there's so many millions of people participating that, like, this truly is like Olympics for them. And maybe it is for Ultimate too, but, like, there's not as many countries get to participate. I don't know. Interesting thing. Different to have an individual sport versus team.
And even talking to them about watching other sports and playing games with other athletes, like, I end up being curious about, like, we've had all these dumb arguments about, like, how would a bunch of NBA players do, or WNBA players do, playing against Ultimate players in Ultimate. Like, yeah, that's one thing. Those are, like, literally the 0.001% greatest athletes on the planet. But, like, how do the best flag football players stack up? I want to get some measurables. I want to get some cross sport play. I think that would be fun. Like, how do Ultimate athletes stack up to other athletes in sports of, like, similar size, similar influence?
It's going to be really fun to find out. I'm looking up flag football real quick because, like, which countries are participating? What do you think? It's presented by the NFL. NFL is making a huge push to get flag football into the Olympics. So
really,
flag football got invited to this World Games as, like, an additional sport. And I mean, the money behind flag football and, like, Olympics is just massive. I'm sure there's going to be a lot of, if you want to watch some flag football streaming, they're going to have it. Here's the qualified countries: USA, Mexico, Panama, Italy, France, Austria, Denmark, and Germany. Pretty similar group in the women's: USA, Mexico, Austria, Brazil, Panama, Japan, France, and Italy. So there you go. Non-contact.
I'm hoping to catch a couple other sports. I think I will try and check out. I mean, that was quite a rave review of fistball, which I literally don't know anything about. So
I got to check out some highlights of that.
Yeah, I am certainly a bit curious.
All right, well, enjoy the action, everybody. We'll have recap coverage all week long on Ultiworld. And if we can improve your viewing experience during pool play, we are producing the streams that are going out on Olympic Channel. So go ahead and hit us up on Twitter. You can email me personally, charlie@ultiworld.com. And we're looking to make it some of the best coverage of Ultimate that has been done. So hopefully we can reach that standard. The Team USA has a high standard for the weekend and this week of Ultimate, and we have a high standard for our production. So hopefully everybody enjoys. And Keith, I know we'll check in for subscribers a couple times throughout this week as we break down the action at the World Games. So I'm looking forward to talking with you. I hope you can watch most of the streams, at least. It's possible to watch night to day, Keith, all the streams if you want.
Wow.
So the coverage begins Tuesday, and every game will be aired on the Olympic Channel and the withdiff.sport website. For Keith Raynor, I'm Charlie Eisenhood saying so long, and we will talk to you subscribers later this week and everybody else next week right here on Deep Look.